Type 4 manual wheelchair is a step down from a Type 5 tilt wheelchair and a step up from the Type 3 that we talked about earlier in our YouTube series of videos. So this type of chair comes with a more rigid frame. You'll notice that it's all one consecutive piece. That's the idea there, is that these users tend to be much harder on their wheelchairs, and so we like to have minimal moving parts. It also ensures that the chair can be a lot lighter. So these chairs are often made of materials like titanium or aluminum. One of the big things that you'll notice is that all the chairs we showed you before, we talked about cross braces. That's sort of the X shape underneath the chair that allows you to tell if the chair can fold or not. So in this one here, you see there's just one continuous axle across the middle, so this type of chair doesn't have the ability to fold. Typically, Type 4 chairs don't fold. There are companies that do produce Type 4 wheelchairs that do fold, such as Motion Composites. They have a chair called the Veloce. Jury's out on whether clients are really liking the foldable Type 4 or not. Usually, like I said, this is sort of an active young user that's traveling a lot of distance. So when you get moving parts, you get things breaking down, and particularly in Northern Ontario, we have trouble with weather and things like that. So this tends to be the way to go. We've talked a lot about different types of chairs in terms of the amount of adjustability they have. Type 4 chairs actually have a lot of adjustability, but the key is that that's really at the time of prescription. So when I prescribe a Type 4 chair to a young active user, I have to be really specific about my measurements and exactly what I want, because afterwards there's just not as much adjustability. We kind of have everything set up and custom made for the user. So I can talk a little bit about some other features about this chair. I'm going to do another video series on the parts of a wheelchair to go with your PowerPoint presentation. So what you'll notice about this one is that the tires easily come off, much like the Type 3 that we talked about earlier. That's because this type of user might be driving and needing to break down the chair potentially to get it in and out of their vehicle. So it allows it to make it a lot smaller in that way. It also has a feature, this one in particular has a bar that you press forward that allows you to collapse the backrest, again making it easier for transportation. A couple of different things about a Type 4 chair in terms of measurement that you want to be aware of is something called dump. So dump is referring to the height of the front of the chair in comparison to the height of the back of the chair. So you'll notice in this chair there's quite a bit of dump. The front of the chair is significantly higher than the back of the chair. That's measured in terms of inches. So for example, if the front of the chair is 2 inches higher than the back of the chair, that means that chair has a 2-inch dump. The reasons that we prescribe dump are to increase the stability of the user and keep them very comfortably kind of wedged in the chair between the backrest and the seat. One of the other big measurements we are aware of when it comes to Type 4 chairs is called camber. Camber is referring to the angle of the chairs in relationship to the user. So this one, for example, the tires are quite straight on either side. If we wanted to, we could have it such that the tops of the tires are actually closer to the user with the bottoms being out further, so they would be angled inward. Reasons we would do that, we all know about base of support, so if we increased the base of support by having the wheels set at an angle like that, the user would have an easier time doing things that are very active, like sport. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about was talking about shoulder stability. So it increases or decreases shoulder strain, I should say, if the person has the tops of the tires closer to them rather than further away, because they're not having to reach as far to do that. And then the other big thing is that that really redirects force for the user, so it makes for a smoother ride if a chair has got some camber in it. So those are the main reasons. The one thing that is not beneficial about a chair with camber is that it obviously makes the whole device wider, makes it harder to get around corners or through doorways. So that's something we have to be aware of as part of the assessment process. So oftentimes you'll see a lot of camber on chairs for active users that are involved in sport like tennis or basketball, because they're turning sharp corners and having to have a really sort of aggressive maneuverability in the chair. So we need to make sure that they're not going to tip over. This type of a chair is quite expensive. This particular frame and back, the whole sort of package was approximately $12,000. Again, we can access ADP for those individuals that qualify for that, and some other funding sources that we've talked about.